We are surrounded by the explosive wealth creation that drives venture capital. Since its IPO in August 2005, the number you're about to hear, I think, is about 100% off. Trace, you'll probably know. Who knows what the price of Google is today, like 300 and something? Does anybody know? 230? Ooh, okay. So this was written, so you're going to see this was probably written a year ago, this page. Since its IPO in August 2005, Google's stock price has shot up from $95 to more than $600, representing an increase in market capitalization from $25 billion to more than $200 billion. Google is the prototypical venture capital deal, the epitome of a process that bets billions of dollars per year on a few thousand technology companies. It is a symbol of virtually limitless upside. A Google search weighs nothing, is silent, and has to its user no immediate ecological footprint or cost, an apparently perfect manifestation of the invisible hand at work. Although it is possible to imagine a fiduciary asking, how many McDonald's are too many? Can the world sustain 50,000 McDonald's and 1 trillion hamburgers? That's kind of a trick that's in there. No fiduciary ever asked that question. But it's possible to imagine one asking it. It is impossible to imagine a fiduciary ever asking, would 1 trillion Google searches a day be too many? Google is a portal to the world of unlimited upside, the world of unlimited information and entertainment, the world of unlimited shareholder entitlement. It is deeply disturbing to stand at the edges of such extreme wealth, such extreme speculation, even when successful, and peer into the expanses of such unrelenting poverty. Poverty of abandoned building, an abandoned village, and field abandoned to mall. Poverty of slum and ghetto. Poverty of pollution. Poverty of congestion and sprawl. Poverty of cheapness and impermanence. Poverty of gated community and security system. Poverty as if ordained by an invisible hand. Poverty of the devalued and the overvalued. Poverty of entire populations who produce little but consume much. Poverty of the near and the real overtaken by the distant and the virtual. Poverty of empty calorie and long shelf life. Poverty of plastic. I really shouldn't interrupt this, but George Carlin popped into my head. This paragraph is really hard for me to read. It is hard for me to read aloud because it's heavy. But George Carlin, bless his heart, once gave a whole riff and he said, I don't know what's wrong with plastic. I'm so sick of hearing all these environmentalists talk about plastic. I think Earth invented people so it could get to plastic. Anyway, so poverty of plastic. Poverty of divorce and displacement. Poverty of erosion. Poverty of proliferating portfolios. Poverty of market mania. Poverty of irrational exuberance. Poverty of affluence. Our ability to redress this poverty in the 21st century will depend on our ability to look beyond wealth creation of the venture capital kind, to look across the boundary of for-profit and nonprofit, to look past internal rate of return and gross domestic product and market indices, and to discover more integral, truer, more beautiful measures of progress and well-being. With appropriate vision, we will come to see each transaction, each investment, not only as a tiny moment of truth, but also as a small but critical opportunity to choose beauty over convenience, beauty over competitiveness, beauty over uniformity, beauty over control, beauty over making a killing, beauty over caveat emptor, beauty over commodification, beauty over the lowest common denominator, beauty over buying low and selling high. We cannot achieve such vision without what economist Herman Daly has called, quote, a deep philosophical clarification. How many people are familiar with Herman Daly's work? Probably a lot, or a number in this. So Herman Daly is a former World Bank economist who's, I think, the most respected world economist who's talking about limits to growth and steady state economics and really fundamentally in the current, as a currently active economist, trying to come up with economically defensible models that offer alternatives to unlimited growth. In these times, such a clarification can only be arrived at finally and to good effect through persistent exploration of new ways to integrate values of beauty and nonviolence into economic transactions. Experiments in slow money are experiments in beauty and nonviolence. And now I've kind of worked around to one of my punchlines, which is not a punchline, but E.F. Schumacher. And I would say that the subtitle of my book, for those of you who remember Small is Beautiful, you'll recognize that the subtitle of my book is kind of a reference to E.F. Schumacher. His subtitle was Economics as if People Mattered, to the book Small is Beautiful, and my subtitle is Investing as if Food, Farms, and Fertility Mattered. Took a little nerve to do that, but I went for it. Beauty was good enough for the title of E.F. Schumacher's seminal work, and it should be good enough for us. He could have chosen small as appropriate, or small as good, or small as the key to health and happiness. He chose the word beautiful, however. His attention focused on issues of scale, nonviolence, self-sufficiency, and a meta-economic, that's his phrase, meta-economic, understanding of man's place in the creation. Here's a quote from Schumacher. Quote, divergent problems, as it were, force man to strain himself to a level above himself. They demand and thus provoke the supply of forces from a higher level, thus bringing love, beauty, goodness, and truth into our lives. It is only with the help of these higher forces that the opposites can be reconciled in the living situation, unquote. Before I keep reading, I just do want to say, for those of you who don't know who E.F. Schumacher was or what Small is Beautiful was, you know, probably the best thing that could come out of this book is a bunch of people going back to read Small is Beautiful. That book, which came out in the mid-70s, was written by a man who was a Rhodes Scholar, a senior economist for the British Coal Board after World War II for a couple of decades, and then later in his life went to Burma and discovered Buddhism and kind of had this epiphany and realized, oh my God, Western economics is completely out of whack with people's true well-being, and wrote a very pithy book of essays that questioned what he called the lack of meta-economics. In other words, the basic premise being, this is perhaps very, very obvious at this moment in time, but again, it wasn't until recently, that economics is not a good organizing principle for all of human affairs. It's just a very powerful tool to get certain things done. But if we've lost that overarching sense of purpose, we're in deep trouble. So I hope some of you will feel moved to go find E.F. Schumacher's book. The unrelenting exercise of the calculus of economics has facilitated the slide toward one-dimensional management decision-making, ugly commercial landscapes, horribly littered media spaces, and dumbed-down public discourse. We have noted and debated with varying degrees of heat the death of God. Some have even noted what they have called the death of money, as currency shifted from gold to paper to bits of information. It is the death of beauty that concerns us here. If we are to rediscover meta-economics, then it will be found through a reaffirmation of the primacy of nonviolence and beauty. In all our actions, especially those that relate to the management of wealth and the making of the enterprises and the products that occupy and define so much of our waking hours, we must keep our attention on nonviolence and beauty. Products produced cheaply create ugly work lives and ugly households and ugly communities. Profits produced quickly cannot purchase patience and care. Patience is beautiful. Restraint and care are beautiful. Peace is beautiful. A small, diversified organic farm is beautiful. There is nothing beautiful in the idea that we will only do no harm if we can, in so doing, make as much money as is generated in the doing of harm. Those of you who have been involved in social investing know that that is a shot, that's an arrow, dagger in the heart of doing well while doing good, but we can talk about that later. I'm almost done with the reading.